All right. Hello, everybody. So this one's going to be fun. I'm so excited about this. Okay. So first and foremost, I'll just wait just a few minutes for some more people to kind of log on here because it's just taken a little bit more time here to kind of get set up. And with Mercury retrograde, I want to give everybody extra time, right? So, but this one is, if you guys have questions, you will see that there's a bit of a chat bar. So by all means, ask questions. I'm all for it. Okay. So this one we are talking all about, I'm gonna move my light over to Smidgy. We are going to be talking all about Ouija boards. And the reason why I'm really talking about this subject in particular is because I think that there is a lot of negative stereotypes. I think that when somebody starts thinking about Ouija boards, they automatically, recluse in fear. And so I have learned a long time ago that when it comes to anything spiritual or spiritual stuff, people fear what they don't understand. People fear what they don't know. And that's why I decided to do this video, because a lot of people, like I said, automatically recluse, or they're like, oh, it's bad. I'm like, actually, it's not. And I think it's gotten a bad rap for a majority of a lot of reasons. But I think a lot of it is because people don't know how to use it the right way. So that's why I really wanted to talk about, proper use and then what to do if things get a little crazy. So first and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about, what exactly it kind of comes with. So it first comes with a board, and this board, and here's the deal. You guys can make your own boards up if you want to. It takes a piece of paper, A through Z, some numbers, there you go. You can even find these like online anywhere. So this is just a basic board. You can kind of see that. It has the yes, no, it's got the letters here, it's got numbers, and it also has a goodbye. So pretty simple. This is a simple board. I mean, I just picked this one up here not too long ago. So, hey, we're not going to start playing right now. So my dogs, of course, I'm going to do a video and they want to just act like jerks. So anyway, this is the board. So when I'm talking about a board, again, you can make one of these boards at home. Takes a piece of paper, A through Z, some numbers on it. I know that you can even download some on Google. So they're all over, right? So that's what this is. This is considered the board. This is called a planchette. Now, sometimes these will come wood, sometimes they're plastic. These happen to have a little bit of felt on them, and then the felt helps this to glide a little bit so you don't scratch the board. So these are the two things that I'm going to be talking about. It's the board or the planchette. And so these are divination tools. And a lot of us use divination tools, and a Ouija board is no different. Okay, it's still a tool. It is a tool, meaning that a divination tool is any tool that we can use to communicate with spirit. So whether that's your spirit guides, whether it's loved ones, whether it's other people you don't want to talk to, like you don't even know, but at the same time, any tool, a divination tool, is a device that helps you to tap into your subconscious along with their energy kind of meshing with yours to be able to begin to communicate. There's all different types of divination tools. We're talking tarot cards, pendulums, dowsing rods, runes. There's a lot of different tools. This just happens to be another tool that gets a bad rap. So first and foremost, when you want to start this out, you want to get a really good location. So I have known people that are being absolute dumbasses and doing this in like cemeteries or doing this in haunted locations. That's just going to open yourself up for trouble. So if you want trouble, you go right ahead and do dumb stuff like that. But location does matter. You want it in a safe, secure place. So a house is okay. That's fine. Outside is fine. A garage is fine. Any area really is okay. But ultimately, like I said, you want to stay away from a haunted location, things like that. Unless you're a paranormal investigator and you know exactly what you're doing, then fine. But I highly suggest we not take these in cemeteries or some known haunted places, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're literally opening up a door for anybody to walk through, and you got to be really careful with what you're doing. This is why I wanted to do this video, so we could talk about some rules. All right, so basically, but location does matter. We want to get this in a decent location. We don't want to do something stupid like I said, cemetery, things like that. Number two, ultimately, you do want at least 2 people. It'd be great. 3 to 5 people, even better. You can do 1 person, but the biggest thing is that if you have just you doing it, there's other tools that might be better, such as pendulums or things like that. But if you feel comfortable doing this yourself and you have enough, I guess, spiritual strength to not only understand what you're doing, but to be able to close that board out later, that's fine. But for starters or for people that are just learning about this, I highly suggest you have at least 2 people. 3 is ideal, 5 is great. And ultimately, when you have these group of people, you want to pick one person to kind of be the leader. And that one person who's the leader is the one that's going to kind of ask the questions and run the show. All the other people are to be quiet. Now, they can maybe whisper in the leader's ear and say, hey, ask this or ask that. Got a question about this, got a question about that. That's fine. That's totally fine. You can do that. But ultimately, when it comes to stuff like that, you want one person to kind of be in charge. They're the ones that are going to ask the questions. They're the ones that are going to keep the order of things, and they're going to keep things on track. So we want one person that's going to ask the questions and be the leader. Then you want another person to quite literally be the secretary or be the writer. They're the ones that are going to write down the answers to the questions that are given. Or show the questions to the leader so he or she could ask questions. The biggest thing is that I tell people you can absolutely record it with your phone if you want to, but here's the deal. You will find that whenever you're communicating with spirit, or whether they're negative or positive, it really doesn't matter. Your electricity or your electrical devices are absolutely going to be from full charge to no charge, and you might lose all that information. So that's why in this instance, when you're using a board, you really want somebody to be like the writer or the secretary, so to speak, so they can jot down just basic bullet points, things like that. So you want to, like I said, figure out who wants to write, who's going to lead. Those are the 2, 1. And then before we get started, you absolutely want to do some sort of a protection mechanism. And you can ask, you can say, okay, it's no different than me when I'm getting ready to read people. I'm going to give this a dose of protection. So usually what I'm going to say is something like, God, angels, please surround me with the white light of the Holy Spirit. And then you should say something along the lines of, we only want to communicate to people that are for our highest good. Because when you're putting that out there, anybody who's not for your highest good, which is some guy that died on the Mormon trail or something negative or things like that, you're setting a boundary, and spirit is not going to be able to come past that boundary. Because remember, your spirit with a human body, their spirit without a body, therefore your energy is going to trump. So you always want to kind of set that precedence of protection right off the bat. We only want to speak to people that are for our highest good. Therefore, you're talking about your loved ones. You're going to be possibly talking to your spirit guides, angels, things like that, people that are positive. And then if you still feel a little like about it, you can absolutely go get some black tourmaline. You can put some black tourmaline in your left pocket. Bra works just fine, ladies. Black tourmaline is highly protective. So feel free to get a piece of black tourmaline on you. That's totally fine. Some people like to put a little bit of salt, around the board. Salt is very protective. So that is fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. And then another thing, like old school, is silver. So some people will put like 2 pieces of silver on the board as well, like silver coins, to also act as protection and a grounding mechanism, so to speak. But like I said, if you want to do salt, have some black tourmaline on you, ask for that protection again. And all you have to do is imagine yourself around the board and it's full of white light. The other thing that spirit suggests, which is weird because they suggest it for me for readings too, is light a white candle. So a white candle is not only is it very protective, but it's very, very benevolent. So the good guys are going to be able to kind of come through and communicate a little bit easier with a candle light. I still don't know why. They haven't given me a really good reason why. But even when I'm doing individual readings, they always want me to have a white candle. So white candles are awesome. So we want to make sure to have a white candle as well. So that's going to help out with the protection part of things, because like I said, you want to protect yourself going right off the bat. And that goes with any tool. So it's no different than if you're going to be using a pendulum. You need to make sure that you're protecting yourself, because again, you don't know who you're talking to. If you're just like, oh, well, let's have a chat. Well, how do you know who you're talking to? So that's why, with any divination tool, whether those are tarot cards, like I said, dowsing rods, you want to set a protection boundary up, stating that if you're for my highest good, we can chat. If not, get out. So, and you don't even have to say if not, just if you're for my highest good, you may come through and communicate with us. That's it. Short, sweet, to the point, right? So the other thing that I'm going to advise is that if you are feeling under the weather, if you are feeling kind of sick, maybe you're in a bit of a depressive state, you're kind of bummed out, you're angry over something, that is not the time to play with any divination tool, let alone a Ouija board or, like I said, pendulum, tarot card. You want to be in a good high vibrational state. You want to be in a positive affect or attitude. You don't want to be in a low negative attitude, because that makes it easier that if you forgot to protect the board, it'll make it very easy for a negative entity to come in to possibly attach, or do something kind of crazy like that. So we always want to make sure that A, we protect the board, and B, we want to make sure that when we're communicating with spirit in any way, shape, or form, that we're always in a high vibrational state, meaning that we're not feeling sick, we don't have a tummy ache, our head doesn't hurt, like we feel good. All right. So that's going to be really important. So then the next thing we're going to do is have everybody that's around start gathering around, and then put their finger, either one finger or two fingers, on the planchette that I was talking about earlier. So we will do that, and then it will start moving. So I think a lot of people always think, well, the other one's pushing it or you're pushing it. I'm like, nope, actually, again, it's using kind of a little bit of your energy, subconscious energy, to be able to communicate. So it will start moving. And at that point, then the leader then can begin asking questions. The biggest thing that I always tell people using any tool is that you have to be respectful. Yes, they're going to be for your highest good if you're putting out the protection, but you don't want to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. And that goes with even if you're doing, a paranormal investigation. So you always want to be respectful. And I found a long time ago that if you threaten, you intimidate, you use those negative words, or you bully, you're going to get what's coming to you. You will. But if you say, please, and you're very respectful, because here's the deal, their spirit too, again, they're just without a body. So how would you feel if you were trying to communicate to somebody and they were being a jerk, right? So the biggest thing I can tell you is be respectful. The more respectful you are, way better that you're going to be able to get on any answers that you're seeking. So like I said, being respectful is a big deal. Being disrespectful might get you to get some chair moves and stuff, but you're opening up yourself to some stuff that you don't want to do. So like I said, respect is a big, big thing. And then whoever the leader is, they need to make sure that they're asking very specific questions. So general questions or questions that are intent based will give you fuzzy answers. So you want to ask yes or no questions. You want to ask questions that are fairly specific, but we don't want to ask like two questions at once because it'll kind of jostle around. So one question, very clear, without necessarily, but well, you know what I mean. No, they don't know what you mean. You need to ask very specifically what it is that, what it is that you want to know. The other thing is that if you are, and we're starting to move, we're getting some answers at any point in time, if the answers feel off, they feel negative, you feel like the energy shifted in the room, it doesn't feel right. And I say the word feel because we all have intuition. I don't care if you're enlightened or not. It does not matter. We all have a little bit of intuition that tells us something ain't right. And at any point in time, if it doesn't feel right, or you feel a shift, or it feels like a downshift or something like this, then we want to close out the board. We want to stop it. We want to stop communication immediately. We want to say goodbye, and we close out the board. So in the meantime, the biggest thing is if it, like I said, if it feels negative, it feels off, we discontinue the use of the board. We stop communication right then and there. That's it. At any point in time, if you guys are using the planchette on the board and it starts to count down from like 9 to 1, or it goes from Z to A, it goes backwards or counts down, I could tell you that ain't a positive spirit, and we're going to stop that session right then and there. So countdowns are usually spirit's way of manipulating their way through something, whether that's through you or the board or whatever it is. Countdowns are not accepted. So if at any point in time it starts to count down, you know that you are not talking to anybody for your highest good. So like I said, and don't be afraid in between these sessions to make sure and reiterate, if you are for our highest good, you may remain. If not, you cannot be here. So like I said, you can continue to reiterate this at any point in time if you feel uncomfortable. But the biggest thing is, again, protection. And so after you've gotten, all of your, and the other thing, by the way, to go back, if it does the countdown, or if it hits all 4 of the corners and it continues to go in the corners, that's, like I said, that's a sign that you're not talking to somebody that's for your highest good. So we want to discontinue that. So sometimes that planchette will go backwards, like in a countdown, or it'll hit the 4 corners and continue to go on the 4 corners. Stop the communication. That's not good. So that means they tell me that you forgot to protect the board, or you forgot to do your layer of protection and stuff like that. All righty. So after that, the next thing is, when you're done, you always want to go to the goodbye. You always want to close that board out. By closing the board, you're literally shutting a door. That's what you're doing. Portals are doors that are open, right? We can close these. We just go goodbye. Where people get into trouble is they don't close the board down, or you're doing it like wrong, and you're doing it wrong by egging people on. We're like, oh yeah, well, if you're really here, turn the lights off. I'm like, oh, they will. But at that point, when those lights turned off, I can tell you that you now have a portal that's been opened, and you best be closing it. And it's better if you close it. So that's why you always have to say goodbye on that board to close it out. So it literally closes the door, shuts the door. So you don't leave the door open, ever, never, no. So you shut the door. And then after you shut the door and you say goodbye, you do not leave the planchette on the board. No. It needs to be absolutely separate. It needs to be put away. So putting it away in the box that it was in, excellent. Some people I know like to put a little salt on it. They like to, put a little salt around this. Whatever you feel comfortable with is fine. Salt is extremely cleansing and very, very protective. I know some people that, kept the box and then they put some black tourmaline in it too, just to make sure. So that's totally fine. That's totally fine. And then again, like I said, you can bring it back out when you're ready to use it or anything like that. The biggest thing that I'm going to tell you where a lot of people get into trouble is that they've done it a few times and they feel pretty comfortable doing it themselves, and then they overuse it. So remember, with any divination tool, you have to make your own decisions for you. Spirit can't make your choices or your decisions for you. You have free will. Therefore, that is a universal law. And I did a YouTube video on universal laws, but that is a universal law that no one, ET, entity, cryptoid, alien, nobody can come in and affect your free will without you giving it. So the biggest thing is that it becomes rather addictive when people want answers to questions, and they're not willing to make those decisions for themselves. And that's where people get into trouble, because they just want to do what they're told. And I'm like, no, life doesn't work that way. You have to make your decisions and your choices for you. So after the board is closed out, everything's done. Like I said, you can reuse it at that point. There are some people that if they use it wrong, or if mom finds it in her house after she told the kids not to, that's a lot of times when they're calling me going, hey, I don't know what to do with this board. Like, I got this. I'm really uncomfortable with it. How do I dispose of it? How do I get rid of it? Now, if you're here in Omaha, you can bring it to me at the store at Awakenings. It's totally fine. I'll take care of it. But that's why I wanted to do this video, so people understand the proper way of disposing a board. If you feel like, maybe we're done with it and it's weirding you out, or for whatever reason. So rule 101 is you don't burn a board. Here's the deal. You burn a board, you're going to leave whatever door open. It's going to remain open. And it is extremely difficult, if not damn near impossible, to close that portal down. Number two, if you burn that board, you're going to find it. And what do I mean by that? Oh, it'll show up about 3 days later on your bed. And then you're really in trouble. So burning a board is a big no-no. The best way that you can dispose of these is to bury it. and you want to go in maybe like a forest or a place that is relatively undisturbed where there's not a lot of people. And you're going to bury it as deep as you can because we don't want animals to get to this, let alone people, right? So we're going to bury this as deep as you can. 3 foot is great, like pretty deep is great. And then you're going to take this board and you're going to bury it upside down like this. Now, there are some people that'll bury it upside down and then maybe put some salt over it too. Fine. If you want to put salt around, like a ring of salt, fine. And when I'm talking salt, I'm not talking Epsom salt. I'm talking pink Himalayan salt, table salt, rock salt, any salt. Epsom salt's magnesium sulfate doesn't count. So we want to get salt on the board or around it, and then we're just going to bury it. Here's the kicker. The planchette, do not bury it with a planchette, okay? We're going to bury this first, and about 10 foot away, then we're going to bury the planchette. Again, upside down, we're going to bury it. And you can do salt again if you want to. Put salt around it. And then when you're done, walk away, but do not turn around. Don't turn around, just walk away. So again, you turning around, you're inviting it to follow you. No. You're going to bury that upside down. You're going to bury this upside down about 10 foot away. Again, 3 foot down so nobody can get to it. And then you're going to turn around and walk away. Do not turn around and look back. That's a big no-no. But burning it is a big no-no. We don't burn those. That's like, because like I said, it'll show back up. And then you really got a problem because that portal is not only going to remain open, that whatever was trying to go through is now completely through. And the odds of that person then getting a negative entity attachment is very, very high. And understand that negative entity attachments are not positive. They're negative entity attachments. And then eventually the goal is to possess. So that's the eventual goal. And that very well could happen, especially if you're in a low vibrational state. They're really going to get you. So that's why I really wanted to talk about, these tools and how to use them the right way, because again, people fear what they don't understand. And I want to educate people on how to use these the right way, how to dispose of them, and what to do and what not to do, really. But it's funny because when I talk to people about this, they really don't know the rules. They really don't understand what to do and what not to do. So that's why I wanted to answer this. Now, I got some questions here. If you haven't used one, can you just display it without a planchette? Absolutely. That's totally fine. So I know a lot of people that do. It's great. So how do I feel about this being marked as a toy? Oh, I wouldn't give it to my kids. No, and I'll tell you, a Ouija board and an angel board, same thing. Same. An angel board and a Ouija board is the same. Same as tarot card, angel card, oracle card. They're the same. So you're just splitting hairs. Why do some churches say any form of communication with the dead is wrong? Because heaven forbid we'd get some answers from spirit. So like heaven forbid we'd have to think outside of a church. So like I said, I disagree with that. Obviously, it's my job, right? But everybody's different. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. Mindy's asking a question about random weird word in my hand. Yeah. So, yeah. But like I said, a lot of this is, as long as you understand how to use this the right way and properly, it's an excellent way to be able to communicate not only with your spirit guides, your loved ones, angels, things like that. But again, you want to protect yourself before you even go into this. And I think that's where a lot of people, make mistakes. And that's where a lot of teenagers especially get into trouble, because they don't realize that they have to close out the board. And then number two, they're usually drinking a little bit, smoking a little bit, and then they're going to egg something on. And then that's when they're coming to me going, hey, I think I have a negative entity attachment. I'm like, bet you do. Bet you do. What would you do? Playing around with a Ouija board? They're like, woo, yeah. I'm like, okay, that's not a joke. Like, that's not a joke. I can't remove those. I'm not good at that. So I have to refer somebody else away. And I will tell you, being a teenager is hard enough, but having a teenager and having a negative entity attachment because you've done something stupid, not smart, not smart. That makes it real tough. So, but like I said, I really wanted to talk to this. There really isn't much more to say other than go ahead and ask questions, whatever you want. But again, do the protection, ask straight questions, pick a leader. But again, any electronics that you might have, expect it to fritz out. They're going to, and it doesn't matter if they're negative or positive spirit, your electronics will fritz out. I can't have my phone really anywhere near me when I'm even doing readings because the batteries will just die. And I'm like, I need to be able to use my phone, but the batteries die really, really fast on that. Good idea to sage the board. You bet. I've done it. So every time I get done, if I feel a little weird, I'm either going to sage or salt. A lot of times I tell people too, if you just feel a little uncomfortable after you get, using it, feel free to take a salt bath. I mean, get some salt, put it in a bathtub, a good 2 cups or so. That's totally fine too. And then if you want to sage yourself and sage the whole area that you used it in, totally fine too. Not a problem. So do you bury the paper also? You sure could. If one uses paper as a board, what do they use as a planchette? A cup. So if they use a piece of paper like this, they'll put A through B, and then they'll just grab a cup upside down and use that as the planchette. And use a cup. I have a pendulum board cards frequently, flip them over selenite, medallions rods, say thank you. Yep, absolutely. So, and you always too, you want to thank spirit for helping you, whether you're using a pendulum or dowsing rods or whatever the case is, always say thank you. I mean, that's a gratitude anyway, because they really were helping you. So, but the biggest thing is always say thank you. Always say thank you to spirit. I have done this from intuition. Is it accurate? You bet. Yeah, it is. So, all right, guys, hopefully we got some questions answered. But like I said, I really wanted to talk about this subject because there is so much fear with this stuff. And I don't want there to be any fear when it comes to divination tools or anything spirituality wise, because again, people fear what they don't understand. And that's why I really wanted to kind of set some boundaries and some rules up that when it comes to Ouija boards, what to do, what not to do, how to use it properly, and stuff like that. So, all right, guys, hopefully this helps you out. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful week ahead. All right, guys, take care.